Unfortunately, today's suicide bombing at Hamid Karzai International Airport was as predictable as it was tragic. The large crowds proved an irresistible target to terrorists looking to sow fear and death in an already tense situation. So, who is responsible? What does this say about the security situation on the ground? Joining me now is a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Bill Roggio. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure, Buck. And it's a horrible day for our servicemen. Our sympathies to the families and of those, and we pray for them and for those fighting in Afghanistan right now.
There are a number of organizations that could have carried this out that people are already talking about. The media and the Biden administration seems pretty focused on ISIS-K or ISIS Khorasan, the Khorasan branch of the Islamic State. First, just tell us, what is ISIS-K?
Yeah, the Islamic State Khorasan is just what they call a province of the Islamic State. It's made up of disaffected members of the Afghan Taliban, the Pakistani Taliban, and some select Al Qaeda fighters. It's estimated to have a couple of thousand fighters in Afghanistan. It's really a tertiary problem when it comes to Afghanistan. The Taliban, as we've seen, had the capacity to overrun the country, while ISIS-K operates on a cellular level. So it's a dangerous group, but really the Al Qaeda Taliban nexus is the one that we really should be worried about. But ISIS-K is, and it did claim this attack is able to carry out attacks like this, and there's some theories behind that.
Now, there's H.R. McMaster, who was the former national security advisor under Donald Trump, came out today and said that he's expressed what seemed to be a high level of certainty in his mind that we will find out that this was actually these dual, what's believed to be suicide bombings, as I understand it as of now. We're getting a lot of new information as this goes on. Was just the Taliban, some faction within the Taliban, that the Haqqani network knew about it. How do you assess that? And what would that mean if that were true?
It's not an unreasonable claim. And the United Nations Sanctions and Monitoring Team issued a report about a year or two ago, and then they followed up on the reporting on this, that there's evidence that the Haqqani network, which is the integral part of the Taliban, Surajuddin Haqqani is the Taliban's deputy emir, and is supported by the Pakistani state, that it has co-opted elements of the Islamic State and basically permitted the Islamic State to conduct attacks. And it basically uses the Islamic State as a cutout. And what this does is allow the Taliban to have plausible deniability. And we've seen multiple attacks inside of Kabul. So the Islamic State, it doesn't control territory. It's dispersed. So when you see big attacks like this that are claimed by them, you have to question, how did they do it? Now, that's, again, there's still information coming out. We don't have evidence that this is exactly the case. But I just want to remind that in that report, the United Nations notes that it had signals intelligence indicating communications between Haqqani network individuals and the Islamic State. So there is reason to have this. It's a viable theory. It's one I give credence to, but it is still a theory. But the reality is we're going to find out more in the days to come. But the reality is this, whether it was Islamic State, the Taliban, Al Qaeda, whoever did this attack, it benefits the Taliban in many ways. It does make them look weak and that they don't control security, but it further humiliates the U.S. as it's on the way out the door. It makes things like General McKenzie say we need to continue working with the Taliban as a security partner, things like that. And so it's a real mess. It helps with the chaos and the humiliation factor that we're seeing in Kabul.
So there could be a kind of Taliban allowing some faction within to conduct this attack, even though clearly if the Taliban wanted to, they could conduct attacks all over the place, right? I mean, that's why this seems to, if they decided to turn their guns on American civilians right now who have not, or even those who are still at the airport, they could probably try to overrun some of the positions, although that would be a very different situation. They could do that. So I want to ask you about just security at the airport and around it. It's been clear for a while. I think people have figured this out, obviously because of the tragedy of today, in ways that are particularly visceral and gut-wrenching, that we're relying on the Taliban for the first layer of security outside the airport, right? That's the situation.
Yeah, that is, Buck. And just one more point, that gives the Taliban plausible deniability, right? They get all the benefits of the attack and none of the blame for it. The security, look, I distilled President Biden's policy on the ground outside the airport. They've trusted a terrorist group that uses suicide bombing as a tactic. That's the Taliban, to prevent another terrorist group, the Islamic State, that also uses suicide bombings as a tactic to protect American citizens. It's absolute insanity. This is why this was predictable. This is why this plan was a mess to begin with. And look, heads need to roll for agreeing to this plan. It's a mess. It cost the lives of 12 service members today, and hopefully no more.
There was a tweet from a Politico journalist, Lara Seligman, that U.S. officials. This is the allegation that this is the report, I should say. U.S. officials gave the Taliban a list of names of U.S. citizens, green card holders, and Afghan allies to grant entry into the outer perimeter of the city's airport, which has prompted outrage behind the scenes from lawmakers and military officials. Do you think is that possible? Would the U.S. really have given the Taliban, not just the U.S. citizens, because I think that generally they can tell who a lot of the U.S. citizens are going to be, but Afghan allies, giving a list of them, is this credible to you?
After what I've seen happen here over the last several weeks, nothing would surprise me, Buck. Obviously that's something that needs to be run down and confirmed, but it sounds right to me. We've outsourced security at the airport to the Taliban. So it wouldn't surprise me if we asked the Taliban to pick up our citizens. This is how just craven and absurd what is happening in Kabul. I don't think this could end in any worse way other than U.S. generals sitting down and signing a surrender treaty here. But this has been utterly and humiliating. And if that report is true, it's putting American citizens and Afghans who supported us lives at risk. If that's true, someone's head needs to roll for that one as well.